Roller Skate Revivers. I'm Nikki, and today's project we are going to remount some Bont Parkstars with some sunlight plates. And I say we are remounting because my friend mounted them already. You can see that these holes are already there, but she was not happy with the way that they felt. She was not happy with her placement, her implementation. So she asked me to help her out because she wanted to move it just a little bit and she didn't feel confident doing it herself.
You grab the skates and I'll grab the tools. Let's go rolling around like a couple of fools. Don't care if we're old, let's start something new. As we go rolling around, me and you.
So what happened is my friend mounted her Bont Parkstars and sunlight plates herself, and this was her first time mounting, so I don't know if it's, you know, what, for whatever reason she was not happy with how they lined up. So she asked me to help her by remounting her plates. So when she gave these to me, they were already mounted, but I already took them apart. You don't really need to see a video of me unscrewing a bunch of stuff. You know, you know how to do that. What I did do already also is I filled in the holes. See, I filled in the holes with some resin because we're probably going to be moving it over just a tiny bit. So sometimes when I mount things for myself, if I'm, you know, just buying an old pair of skates and remounting them, I don't even bother to fill in the holes. But obviously when I'm doing something for somebody else, I try to do a much better job than I would do for myself. And also I think we're probably going to be moving these over really just a tiny bit to where maybe we would be drilling into the same spot. So it is better in that case to fill in the holes. And there's a couple of different ways that people will do this. Sometimes people will just use wood filler. I saw somebody online did like, she first put in like toothpicks or like, you know, like barbecue skewers, and then she glued those around just to kind of, I mean, I guess there's a lot of different ways to do it, but what I did was I used resin. You can just follow the directions from the resin that you buy. Basically, you buy two things. You mix them together, you stir it around for like 5 minutes, and then you put it in. I used both masking tape and duct tape on the inside, the masking tape, so it wouldn't be too sticky, and then the duct tape over it, so it would be very strong, and it wouldn't, you know, end up getting resin all over the inside of the boot. So I taped up where the holes are on the inside of the boot, and then I just, you know, poured it in from the top. And it took a while to dry, like more than a day. And I was a little surprised because this one was like, the front holes were really just, you know, a couple drops, not very much at all. But with the back holes, I just felt like it kept on, like it used a lot more resin than I expected. And I was like worried that I had not taped it up well enough on the inside. And it was just getting all over the place. Because I was like, where the fuck is all this resin going? But whatever, it finally eventually did, you know, fill up. So we are going to be remounting these. My friend said that she had followed the Bonts center line. And you see, if you buy a set of Parkstars, they have a center line already marked. I followed it and I'm really happy with it. But I have heard some people say that they were not as happy with where it is placed, as, you know, they didn't want to just follow it. So the first thing that I'm going to do is put some masking tape where I expect to place the holes, and I do that so that when I'm marking it, if I change my mind, I can just take off the tape and put it on another one. I don't have to confuse myself by being like, is this the first hole or the second hole? I don't remember. So masking tape on the boots. So next I held up the plates on the boot and marked the holes where I think I should drill now. I was about to mark the second one, and I might have found what led my friend astray. If I'm looking at the center line that's marked on this boot, it's really pretty far out. Like if I were to follow it, which is probably what she did, then it's like way out, pretty far to the right. And I mean, yeah, okay, that's really far. Plate, you know, placement is pretty subjective, but this is quite far out. So I see now why she was dissatisfied. So I'm going to be moving it in just a little bit. Some notes about placement when mounting. In my personal opinion, talking about mounting online is the quickest way for a discussion to go from courteous and helpful to extremely pedantic and annoying, because there's a lot of different ways to do things, a lot of different styles and personal preferences. For example, where you put the center line, like how you align the plate, be it this way or slightly out. So there's one style which is more of a center line, which kind of mimics more like how ice skates feel. And I might be wrong, but I think Moxies tend to be mounted in this way. And that's more like stable. But some styles, like for example, speed skating and derby skating, tend to be kind of angled outward a little bit, and that's for a more efficient push. So it's faster, especially on like a circular track. And also another very subjective thing is the plate size. And when people say size, usually what they're referring to is actually the wheelbase, which is the distance from this part to this part. They might be talking about the actual size. Hi, Shots, I'm making a video. Can I help you? Basically, a long plate is very stable, but not very responsive. A short plate is very responsive, not very stable. There's no such thing as a free lunch. Every time you gain something, you lose something. It's up to you to decide what you want. So for example, when I played roller derby, I had a very short wheelbase because I like to be able to like zip around and, you know, like change my direction very quickly because it's a very short track when you're playing roller derby. When I'm park skating, however, I prefer a very long wheelbase because there's never a time where I feel like I wish I could turn on a dime. You take wide, long carts. There's never a time where I want to just like turn on the ramp immediately. And I'd rather be able to land, you know, like jumps and things like that. And also, and this is a very specific thing to me, but I super love to power slide. I want to power slide on all the surfaces all the time. I love making big noisy screeching sounds, and that is easier to do on a long wheelbase. So for example, this setup, which is the same that I have, is basically as long as this boot will, this plate is basically as long as this boot will take. It's a 6.5 size, was like 38.5, 6.5, 259 millimeter boot, and it's a size 5 Sunlight, and there's really nowhere else it could go. This is like as long as this boot will accept. And so the rear trucks are going to be a little bit behind the ankle bone, and the front ones will actually be in front of the ball of the foot. Whereas like some people would say, oh, that's too long. For other skating styles, you might have wanted it more, you know, like under the ball of the foot, but that will not be the case for this build. Quick note, Bonts are really easy to drill, so that's actually pretty fast work, but it does make a mess. So I changed into, you know, a shitty old work shirt. And I don't know if you need to be using a proper ventilator. I'm just going to be using a fabric mask, but you don't want to be breathing this stuff in, so. If this were a typical, like a leather soled boot, I would be using a countersink, which basically makes like a little concave hole in the boot so that you can have your mounting hardware sit pretty flush, and so it's just very flat, and the skater can't perceive it. But the mounting hardware that Bont comes with is, I forgot what this is called, button head or whatever. But it obviously wouldn't benefit from a countersink because it's just flat on the bottom, and you'd have to have a giant hole. And I don't even think that the Bont sole would accept it very well. So I won't be using a countersink today, but normally I would. And actually, when I first saw these, I thought that it was going to be annoying and I would feel it under my foot, but I've never noticed it, so totally fine. Some tools I like to use when mounting. Basically, you're going to need, you know, some form of a screwdriver for the top, and then also something to hold the nut in place on the bottom. Sometimes I like to use what's called a, I think it's like a bolt nut spanner or something like that. I think it's a plumbing tool because I can just hold on to it. Or another thing you could do is just like a screwdriver with the correct attachment to hold the nut in place, and then another screwdriver on the top, and basically you just have to use the opposition. Otherwise, if you just use the screwdriver on the top, then the bottom is just going to keep spinning and you won't really be doing anything. You could also use a drill. Finish, yeah, so they are still pointing outward, but not as far out as they were before. Hopefully she likes them. So I think all of you can handle it. Maybe watching me do it will make you feel a little more comfortable trying it yourself. It was not very difficult. I have received feedback that my channel, for being a roller skate channel, is very heavy on the blah blah and very light on the skatey skate. But I'm not gonna, you know, put on my friend's skates. That would be rude to get my sweat inside. And she's out of town, so I will just toss on some video of the most beautiful ramp I ever had the fortune to skate on. It's the exact same setup, so just pretend that it's these little babies in action.
You grab the skates and I'll grab the tools. Let's go rolling around like a couple of fools. Don't care if we're old, let's start something new. As we go rolling around, me and you. Tie up your lace